Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what just happened inside the Oval Office today, this is something that nobody, not even the media, not the insiders, not the staffers were prepared for. So New York's most radical mayor in modern history walked into the White House acting like he was about to lecture the president of the United States as if he were stepping into a college debate and not the most powerful room on earth. But instead, President Donald J. Trump torched every fantasy, every promise, every talking point that Ron Mamdani has been selling to New Yorkers for months. And I'm telling you right now, in all my years, all the years that I've watched these political meetings, I have never seen an official look more rattled than Mamdani did when Trump pressed him on the $700 million free bus plan. He froze, he stumbled, and when President Trump hit him with this question, how are you going to pay for it? The room went dead silent. And that wasn't even the highlight, because the moment that Trump brought up the rent-freeze hydrogen bomb warning from billionaire Cliff Asness, the entire meeting went nuclear. Mamdani, he couldn't explain the math. He couldn't justify the policy. I mean, he couldn't even defend the collapse that's already happening in New York's housing market. And President Trump didn't hold back, not even for a second. I mean, he laughed, he pushed, he dismantled every radical idea that Mamdani walked in with. Right up until Mamdani wasn't debating, he was just surviving. This wasn't a meeting. This was a political autopsy live in the Oval Office. And if you think that I'm exaggerating, guys, just wait until you hear Trump's answer when reporters asked if he'd feel safe living under a Mamdani administration. That moment alone, guys, that moment right there, it changed the entire energy in Washington. So stick with me because we're breaking down every second of this jaw-dropping showdown with receipts, with context, and with the raw truth that the mainstream media is already trying to bury. Hit the like button and subscribe. Guys, this is the real story behind the meeting that just shook New York and it sent shockwaves across the entire country. So let's get into this, right? Ladies and gentlemen, the moment that Mamdani stepped foot in the Oval Office, the entire tone of the country shifted. I mean, nobody expected this meeting. Nobody expected Trump, President Donald J. Trump, here in 2025 to give New York's most radical mayor a seat across from the Resolute desk. But yet, there he was, looking tense, stiff, rehearsed. Meanwhile, Trump, calm, controlled, studying him like a man who already knew how the next 2 hours were going to go. This wasn't a meeting. This was a collision. America first versus ideological fantasy. And from the opening handshake, you could feel it. The stakes were very high. The moment Trump opened his mouth, the dynamic locked into place. He congratulated Mamdani on winning, fair, firm, even generous, but he didn't pause for more than 5 seconds before boxing him into the series of real questions about housing, safety, affordability, and reality, of course, right? Trump spoke with the calm authority of a man who rebuilt cities, sat across from world leaders, and knows exactly when somebody's bluffing. Well, Mamdani, he kept trying to posture. He kept trying to float these talking points, but Trump's presence flattened them instantly. It became obvious. Trump wasn't here for speeches. He was here for answers. And Mamdani, he just didn't have them. And so the moment that the conversation shifted to the free bus plan, you could pretty much feel the oxygen leave the room. Trump leaned forward and asked the single question that Mamdani has been spending months dodging. How are you going to pay for it? And right there, right in the Oval Office, Mamdani slipped into the same word salad that New Yorkers have been warning about. Corporate tax hikes, millionaire tax hikes, we'll figure it out. Just these vague gestures at the state will help. But Trump wasn't buying it. No, the math wasn't mathing. $700 million. And Mamdani couldn't even articulate a real plan. Just these ideological hopes wrapped in fiscal fantasy. Now, the light bulb moment when everything makes sense, that's what people are experiencing after calling Chapter about their Medicare coverage. And this is why I partner with Chapter. They explain Medicare in a way that actually clicks. Now, one of our viewers said, I finally get how my plan works. So let me ask, are you ready for your light bulb moment? Now, most people already had theirs after calling 909-563-8279 or after visiting askchapter.org/Ron. I left a link for you guys down below, and just listen to this real comment from a real viewer. So Carrie Mask said, Chapter saved me $3,500 by changing plans. Wow, that is crazy. Now, Trump didn't let him escape. He pressed, he questioned, he forced clarity that Mamdani simply didn't have. And when Mamdani tried the infamous line, it's not about how we fund it, it's about doing it. Well, Trump just literally laughed in his face, not out of disrespect, but disbelief, because every leader in that room already knew the truth. If you can't explain the funding, the plan is already dead. Now, Trump broke it down like a businessman. No revenue stream, no sustainable budget, no contingency plan. It wasn't even a debate. It was a dismantling, piece by piece, right up until the entire free bus agenda collapsed under its own impossibility right there in front of reporters. Then came the bombshell moment that sent shockwaves through every financial district in America. Mamdani doubly doubling down on his promise to freeze rents for 2 million New Yorkers. Trump's expression pretty much said it all, because everyone who understands economics already knows what happens when you freeze rents. Buildings decay, landlords abandon properties, maintenance stops, investment dies, and the entire neighborhood collapses. Now, Trump reminded him politely, but very powerfully, that every city that tried this ended in disaster. But Mamdani wasn't prepared. He couldn't defend the math, he couldn't explain the long-term economic impact, and he for sure couldn't answer the simplest question: how do you stop a housing market from collapsing if you freeze its oxygen? And so this is exactly when Trump brought up the warning that detonated across the financial world. Billionaire hedge fund titan Cliff Asness calling Mamdani's rent freeze scheme a hydrogen bomb strapped to New York City real estate market. The room shifted, guys. Reporters perked up, Mamdani froze. Trump quoted Asness almost verbatim, laying out how investors would flee, developers would halt projects, property values would crater, and rental stock would vanish. I mean, you could pretty much see Mamdani scrambling to distance himself from the backlash, but there was no escape. Trump used that moment to corner him completely. If your own economists are calling it a bomb, why are you still defending it? And so after exposing the rent freeze chaos, Trump pivoted straight into the heart of the crisis: safety. Because Trump already knows, and every New Yorker knows too, that affordability means nothing if your streets aren't safe. Mamdani tried to claim New York was improving, but Trump shut that down instantly. He connected the dots. Collapsing housing, rising taxes, police shortages, radical policies create the same outcome every time: a city people flee, not a city that people thrive in. Then Trump delivered the line that broke Mamdani's posture completely: if your streets aren't safe, your city won't survive. The room went silent, because it was true, and everyone knew it. This is when reporters brought up the infamous threat from New York police officers, the actual NYPD, 4,000 cops prepared to walk out on day one of Mamdani's term. So instead of addressing it, Mamdani brushed it off like it was some rumor. Trump didn't. He looked him straight in the eye, and he pressed the question everyone in New York has been terrified to ask: what happens if they actually leave? And Mamdani, he had nothing. No plan, no strategy, no backup, just denial. Trump made it crystal clear: the NYPD is already stretched thin, already demoralized, already carrying a city on its back. If thousands walk out, New York City collapses overnight. And Mamdani, he still didn't flinch, because he had no answer. Next came the moment that genuinely rattled law enforcement across the entire country. Mamdani, he openly admitted that he wants the NYPD's strategic response group pulled back from protests, riots, and mass disturbances. In fact, Trump's face changed instantly, because SRG is not just another unit. SRG is New York's frontline defense against chaos, riots, violent gatherings, terror threats, major events, and emergencies. They respond when nobody else can. Mamdani, he tried spinning it into a civil liberties issue, but Trump fired right back at him. If you can't defend your city, you can't govern your city. And it hit hard, because removing SRG isn't reform, it's clearly surrender. Then reporters brought up the ICE question. This is the one that Mamdani has been dodging for months. They reminded him he once called ICE a rogue government entity. Trump didn't let that slide at all. In fact, he leaned forward and he reframed the issue in a way that stunned everyone. So you want the murderers out of New York more than I do? Brutal and effective, but suddenly, Mamdani had no room to posture. He was forced to acknowledge that violent criminals, not families, not workers, but actual criminals, are flooding New York streets. And Trump made it clear: enforcement isn't optional, safety isn't optional, and no mayor, radical or not, gets to ignore that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen close, because what I'm about to tell you could reshape how you view America's clean energy future. Artificial intelligence has stopped being a future story. In fact, it is a right now megatrend backed by $471+ billion in private funding, running on data centers that never sleep and absolutely cannot run on intermittent power. Now, according to the IEA, global electricity demand from AI, crypto, and data infrastructure, it's set to double by 2026. This is the equivalent of Japan's entire electricity consumption. Now, NVIDIA, Microsoft backs Anthropic in a $30 billion bid for AI scale, with option to secure up to 1 gigawatt of additional computer power. The U.S. forges an $80 billion nuclear partnership with Westinghouse, Cameco, and Brookfield to power AI and secure energy dominance. Google and Microsoft are reviving dormant nuclear reactors. Now, this isn't preparation. This is panic wrapped as planning. And at the heart of this new American energy boom, nuclear power. And what fuels nuclear power? That's right, uranium, plain and simple. Now, today's sponsor might be holding the keys to that problem. So stick with me to the very end because what I'm about to share with you folks, this is flying completely under Wall Street's radar for now. Shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Disseminated, on behalf of Foremost Clean Equals Energy Ltd on the Nasdaq under ticker symbol FMST. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you AI is consuming massive amounts of power with Anthropic alone committing billions to scale its compute, making uranium-fueled nuclear energy more critical than ever. How tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Meta are scrambling to lock up every last pound of uranium to power their AI servers, and how one company, Foremost Clean Energy, ticker symbol FMST on the Nasdaq, is sitting at the center of this energy surge, actively drilling high-grade uranium and gold lithium targets and positioning itself for major discovery. Folks, uranium is the new oil. If the US wants a true energy independent future, one that doesn't rely on Russia, China, or Middle Eastern suppliers, domestic uranium production isn't optional, it's essential. So let's talk about Foremost Clean Energy, ticker symbol FMST, and why some believe that they're in the best place on earth to feed Trump's nuclear push. Now, Foremost is a junior uranium explorer with a big advantage. They've secured 45 claims covering over 330,000 acres right in Canada's legendary Athabasca Basin, the so-called Saudi Arabia of uranium and one of the richest uranium districts in the world. They are actively drilling to expand its high-grade uranium resources. Now, on November 17, 2025, FMST announced the completion of a 2,695-meter diamond drill program at Murphy Lake South. This is one of its flagship assets, returning intersections that included elevated radioactivity, graphitic fault structures, significant hydrothermal alteration, evidence of uranium-bearing hydrothermal fluids, and reactive basement structures, features that collectively indicate a highly prospective uranium-bearing system. Now, on top of their large uranium portfolio, FMST also holds gold and lithium properties. In November, FMST announced first assay results from its first 4 holes in its 2025 drilling program at the 100% owned Jean Lake gold lithium property in Manitoba. Multiple shallow, high-grade gold intercepts along the Valkyrie trend, most notably 10.7 grams per ton gold over 5.6 meters from 100.5 meters, including 82 grams per ton gold over 0.7 meters, 34.2 grams per ton gold over 0.8 meters, within 9 grams per ton gold over 3.5 meters, all occurring within 100 meters of the surface. These latest findings build on earlier discoveries and they suggest a growing near-surface mineralized gold system, reinforcing Foremost exploration model. With drilling still ongoing, further drill results can be expected. And the company isn't going at it alone either. Their biggest shareholder is Denison Mines, one of the top uranium developers in North America with a $2 billion market cap. Now, Denison owns roughly 19% of Foremost shares. Denison's own CEO even sits on Foremost's board. It's kind of like having an NFL Hall of Famer coaching your rookie season. The roadmap is already in place. And let's not forget, in uranium, location is everything. The closer you are to proven mines like Cameco's Cigar Lake and McArthur River, the higher your odds of hitting pay dirt. And just think about the big picture. AI is sucking up power like never before. Some reports are saying that data centers could swallow 12% of all U.S. electricity by 2028. For example, Anthropic has committed $30 billion to Microsoft Azure compute capacity, locking in massive long-term cloud resources, while NVIDIA is investing up to $10 billion in the company. Now, this isn't just about money. Anthropic plans to scale Claude using up to 1 gigawatt of NVIDIA's cutting-edge hardware, Grace Blackwell and Vera Rubin systems, demanding continuous, reliable power. That kind of energy load is precisely why domestic nuclear, fueled by U.S.-produced uranium, is becoming a critical backbone of America's AI-driven future. Now, Meta, Google, Amazon, they're already buying gigawatts of nuclear capacity to feed their server farms. Meanwhile, Sprott Physical Uranium Trust is hoarding physical uranium to tighten supply even further, all while President Trump's orders guarantee America's uranium must be mined there, not bought from Moscow or Beijing. So here's what makes FMST even more interesting. It's sitting at a market cap of under $35 million, while many peers with less ground trade at $100 million or more. They are fully funded for this year's drilling with extra cash in the bank. And as a kicker, they even own over 55,000 acres of lithium-rich ground in Canada, giving you bonus exposure to battery metals with zero extra dilution. So in a world where energy security, AI, and clear baseload power are colliding, a tiny overlooked uranium explorer with heavyweight backing could catch Wall Street sleeping. This is why Foremost Clean Energy, ticker symbol FMST, is worth watching like a hawk as President Trump's nuclear push plays out over the next few months and years. So with domestic uranium demand surging, FMST is strategically positioned to explore the critical nuclear fuel that will power America's energy independence. So if you're curious, I'll drop the links in the description down below so that you can read their investor deck, check out their recent drill news, and decide for yourself. Now, just remember, guys, this is not investment advice. I am not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing what I'm seeing. Now, always do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Investing in junior explorers presents high risks, but mark my words, uranium is back, and if Trump gets his way, domestic explorers like FMST could be front and center in America's new nuclear age. So when Mamdani tried to justify dismantling SRG by claiming that it was about protecting First Amendment rights, Trump shut that window down instantly because everyone in law enforcement, they already know protests don't stay peaceful when there's no trained unit present to keep them from spiraling. And Trump broke it down. Rights and safety are not enemies. They reinforce each other. Now, if you remove SRG, you're not protecting speech, you're inviting chaos. Mamdani kept pointing to isolated peaceful marches, ignoring the violent eruptions New Yorkers have endured for years. Trump exposed the flaw. Free speech is protected by order, not by pretending that danger doesn't exist. And Mamdani had no rebuttal for that. So by this point, it wasn't even a contest. I mean, Trump stood there calm, composed, unshaken, while Mamdani looked increasingly overwhelmed, kind of like as if every question pulled another thread out of his campaign promises. Trump offered specifics. Mamdani offered slogans. Trump presented solutions. Mamdani presented theory. And the reporters in the room, they felt it. The optics were undeniable. Trump looked like the only adult in the room, the leader who had seen real crises and actually solved them. Mamdani looked like a man learning in real time, and that governing is not the same as making speeches. When the cameras cut, everyone already knew the headline. Trump dominated. And so just when everyone thought that the meeting was nothing but confrontation, Trump made a move that nobody expected. He reminded the press that a surprising number of Mamdani voters, especially working class, anti-war, anti-corruption progressives, actually voted for Trump in 2016. I mean, you could feel the shock ripple in the room. Trump explained that when Bernie Sanders was pushed out, a massive portion of his base shifted to him because they recognized the one big thing that both men shared: a hatred for corruption and a refusal to sell out American workers. And by pointing that out, Trump did something devastating. He cracked Mamdani's coalition right in front of him. Then Trump delivered the moment that will play on loop across New York for weeks. He told reporters that he's willing, ready, in fact, to help New York rebuild, reinvest, restore order, and become the crown jewel of America again. But he did draw a line in the sand. You want a great New York? Then you must have a safe New York. That message was unmistakable. Trump was offering partnership, but not permission for chaos. He wasn't just going to stand by and watch the city collapse under radical policies and ideological experiments. This was his warning shot to Mamdani: fix the city or step aside for someone else who will. Now, Trump didn't sugarcoat the economic catastrophe unfolding in New York because the numbers speak for themselves. Rent is skyrocketing, families are fleeing, landlords are giving up, stores are shuttering, and even NYPD officers, some are making $180,000 to $300,000 a year, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. This is how brutal the cost of living has become under radical leadership. Trump used this reality to hammer home a point Mamdani couldn't dodge. You can't freeze rents, you cannot blow $700 million on free buses, and you can't gut law enforcement in a city that's already hanging by a thread. Every bad policy compounds the collapse. So Trump ended the meeting with a moment that pretty much summed up the entire showdown. He looked at the cameras, praised the city, praised the people, and said he genuinely hopes Mamdani succeeds, but the subtext was unmistakable. If Mamdani keeps pushing these radical, mathless, ideological experiments, New York will fail. The rent freeze, the free bus fantasy, the police crisis, the SRG dismantling, the ICE retreat, every one of these decisions nudges the city closer and closer to a breaking point. And Trump made it clear, he will not let America's largest city implode on his watch. Now the question is simple: will Mamdani change, or will New York pay the price?